If a strange voice on the net tells you, do not fire at the one breath when your team is about to be overrun, do you trust it or not? Headquarters to Poseidon, Bravo-12. No assets available for 70 minutes. You're on your own. Wind scrapes the limestone. Static crawls across the radio like frost. In the ravine, 11 Americans press into rock that feels too thin to stop a bullet. Magazines are light. The ground funnels into a crossfire, fan angles that bite if you move, angles that punish if you don't. Chief Bear Kittredge checks the belt on his gun and says nothing. Doc Nolan touches the corner of a folded family photo and whispers, "Not today." Lieutenant Alina Reyes, young, steady, pale face dusted with grit, glances at the small cord on her wrist, 4 rough marks that read, "Pour oars." A lesson she paid for once, a lesson she will not pay for again. Holchi says, voice low and clear, "We shoot to live, not to shout." Then the air changes. A calm, unfamiliar voice cuts through the static, close, precise, as if it were standing beside them. "Hold your positions. Let me work. I'm Sentinel 9. Reyes studies the handset, as if she can see the man on the other end. She does not blink. "Two-step COMSEC," she says. "Miss one character, and we cut this net for good." Silence. A breath. Somewhere up on the ridge, metal settles against stone. The gorge waits. The team waits with it. A choice hangs in the cold like a held note. Who do you trust in the dark? Sokol Gorge is a narrow scar a mile and a bit from mouth to mouth, with 3 exits that don't feel like exits at all. The wind slides down the limestone and then turns on itself. Sound bounces in strange ways. A whisper here becomes a shout there. A boot scrape above you sounds like danger behind you. The floor funnels movement into angles the enemy has already measured. It is a place that punishes hurry, and punishes hesitation too. Lieutenant Alina Reyes presses closer to the rock grit on a pale cheek, eyes steady. She is young, the kind of young that carries long miles and short sleep. But her voice is the voice of a captain in an old story, clear, even practical. On her wrist is a thin cord with 4 rough marks, poifours. A lesson she paid for once. A lesson she will not pay for again. Fire only when it matters, she says on the team net. No noise we don't need. Lower positions. Make the rock do the work. A thermal camera sees body heat. Smoke and a hot background can blur that outline for a heartbeat or two. The enemy up on the ridges have thermals. They also have patience. Their fire overlaps into a cross fan that bites when you move and seems to bite when you don't. Somewhere above, metal settles on stone. Somewhere else, a cough pretends to be a threat. Reyes listens past the lies the gorge tells. "Count it," she says. Chief Mason Bear Kittredge answers firsthand, on the feed cover of his gun. 40 rounds on belt. One more link I don't trust. After that, prayers and bad ideas. Copy. Reyes doesn't smile. "Keep your strings short. No chasing echoes." "Doc," she asks. HM2 Nolan Pierce touches his aid bag, inventorying by feel gauze tape, tourniquet a small vial he hates to use. "Bandages are fine. Morphine is thin. I've got hands. I'll make them count." He taps the pocket where a family photo is folded small. He does not pull it out. He knows the faces by memory and by need. "Rifle mags," Reyes says, and the line answers most have a magazine and a half, some less. Hers is worse than she would like, 19 rounds, but better than fear would claim. Numbers aren't comfort. They are clarity. Clarity is enough. The wind turns. Reyes tastes dust. She watches a scrap of thread tied to her slinks, an old shooter's trick when you don't have a meter. It flutters. Left, then right, then lies still, as if the air decided to catch its breath. The moment is thin, but it is clean. On the cliff lip to the west, A head dips and rises. A hand gestures. Light winks on something slick. It is not a scope. It is a comms handset. Whoever stands there tells others when to move and when to shoot. The angle is cruel, a sliver of forehead the top of a shoulder, a shadow that refuses to confess where the chest sits. A bad shot unless the wind behaves and the hand stays still long enough to be a mistake. Reyes lowers her cheek to the stock and lets her breathing become a metronome. She does not fire. Not yet. She files the target away. The gorge punishes people who need to be the first to do something. 3 exits, she says softly, redrawing the map the team already knows. North cut west notch and the almost road that wants to be a road. They'll try to pour through north and pincers from the high sides. We win by refusing to be where the plan expects us. She does not tell them a story about confidence. She tells them a 10-minute plan. 10 minutes at a time, she says. Rock cover only. Drop to lower ledges when the wind stands up. If you can't help the fight, help a move. Bear owns the ground a yard in front of them, short strings, then silence. Doc lives in the spaces between us. Mam Bear says, settling his body behind the gun like a carpenter squaring a bench. You'll get quiet, then punctuation. Copy. They flow down by inches, knees, elbows, the slow work of learning to be smaller. The gorge's cold climbs their sleeves. The stone becomes a partner instead of a wall. Reyes's thumb touches the plug-boom for his cord. She doesn't look at it. She knows every scratch by heart. 4 seconds. The long blink. The extra breath. Once a teammate had bled because she waited for a perfect picture instead of a good enough one. Since then, COMSEC is not a checkbox. It is a rail on a mountain road. Voices on the net earn trust by answering challenges, not by sounding confident. Procedures are there to be obeyed when the world gets loud. Thermal eyes still searching, she notes. Remember, if we give them smoke with heat behind it, we buy a breath to move. Don't gift them our silhouettes against cold rock. Understood, Nolan says. The thread on her sling nods once left to right and holds. A kindness. Reyes lets the kindness pass. The man on the cliff lip raises the handset again to his mouth. The ridge leans to listen. The bad angle becomes a little less bad. The top of his temple aligns with a spot on the limestone that Reyes has already named in her head. She doesn't squeeze. She stores the picture and the feel and the wind and the tiny tremor in her finger that means the body plans before the mind admits it. Hold, she tells herself and the team. We live by the minute. The minute lives by us. From the east, a smear of smoke crawls along the ridge. Not theirs. The enemy is not only watching, they are shaping. Smoke in this cold with heat behind it will hide a move for a breath or two. Reyes files that away too. Tricks do not belong to one side. Listen, she says. The gorge lies. It throws sound where it wants. If you can't see it, don't shoot it. We don't feed echoes. Bear answers with a low I, more exhale than word. The second minute offers a gift and a warning. The gift, the handset man grows lazy, leaving the device at his mouth, as if command were a habit his hand forgot to break. The warning bodies are sliding toward the north, cut in 2s and 3s, not running, not fearful. They are building a rope out of small strands. A rope can pull a team in half if you let it. North is thickening, Nolan says from his crack in the rock. Looks like a braid. Good eye, Reyes replies. We will break the rope, not the strands. Bear prepare to brush the ground a yard in front of their shoes, not their faces. Dust in eyes is better than stone in ours. Too short, then hush, he says. Correct. Reyes lifts her glance to the sky, reading a weather she can't touch. Pale, thin, honest for now. She checks her magazine again, not because 19 rounds will change, but because touching the number keeps her anchored to the truth. She hears a heart nearby beat too fast. "Breathe," she says, not naming the owner of the heart. In through the nose, out through your teeth. Count 4. The shot is a sentence. Only say it if you know the words. The handset glints. The head behind it tilts. The shoulder shows more than it should. Reyes's finger takes up slack, then gives it back. Not yet. Her plan is not a bullet. Her plan is a bridge to the next minute. The next minute is the only country she needs to hold. At her side, Doc Nolan presses his gloved thumb to a shaking wrist. "You're okay," he tells the man attached to it. We've all heard this song. He doesn't say he carries a chorus in his pocket folded into the shape of a family photo that smells like home when it rains. Reyes speaks softly more to the gorge than to the net. This place wants noise. We'll give it discipline instead. The team becomes quiet in the way professionals are quiet. Not absence of sound, but presence of control. The air seems to step back to see what they will do. "On my mark, we will test their timing," she says. "Bear, you'll paint the ground. Doc, shift Nolan's side by 2 bodies if the smoke turns honest. Stephen Park, you ride my shoulder. If the handset speaks again, I'll cut it. If the wind lies, we wait." She tastes the dust again and hears the tiny click the handset man makes when he keys. Her cheek warms the stock. The thread nods left to right, willing to be believed. She sets the hold a breath high to respect the slope, and a finger to the right to respect the air. "Not yet," she says to a part of herself that wants to settle old debts with the past. We don't fix yesterday by rushing today. The North Cut gathers more men. A wedge forms a shape that assumes numbers are destiny. Reyes watches it the way a doctor watches a fever measuring the time between pulses. 10 minutes, she reminds them, calm as a bridge. We build it 1 minute at a time. The gorge listens. The wind leans. The handset man lifts his chin a little too far. Reyes's finger becomes the smallest, steadiest thing in the world. She does not fire. Not yet. They own this minute by saving what matters for the next. And somewhere inside the next, if the wind stays honest, and the stone keeps its secrets, the handset will go quiet, and the rope at North will fray before it tightens. Because that is how you live here, by choosing patience with a spine and action with a conscience. The ridge holds its breath. Static thins to a hush. Sentinel 9 Reyes says, "Calm and plain. Challenge 1. Confirm sunrise vector 0415 and grid suffix kilo 7. A half beat. Then the voice, sunrise 0415 confirmed. Kilo 7 verified. Winds at your height left to right 7 to 9 with dirty eddies near the North Cut. Treat edge gusts as false tailwinds. Clean. Exact. No bragging. No extra. Challenge 2. Reyes continues. Last 3 of our infill time reversed. 312 the voice replies. I advise. You decide. Reyes nods once more to the team than the stranger. Copy. You advise. We decide. The gorge settles into that small, useful silence professionals make when it's time to work. Priority Sentinel 9 says, tone steady. Cut the command voice on the west lip. He times their pushes. Take his mouth and you take their rhythm. Second, shape their sight heat decoy, plus smoke 15 degrees off your true line. For Doc Reyes says keeping it simple for everyone. Thermal sees heat. Smoke with a warm backdrop blurs a body for a breath or two. That breath buys us movement. Understood, Nolan answers. Reyes breaks the plan into pieces you can hold. Bear you paint, ground not faces. 2 short strings, then quiet. Doc, you shift, with me no hero runs. Stevens Park ride my shoulder. If the handset speaks, I cut it. If the wind lies, we let it. She throws the first smoke herself. The can rolls, hisses, blooms, where a person would not stand. Nolan lays a foil packet near a sun-hot slab. The packet drinks heat and leaks it back. It is ugly. It is perfect. Across the way, 2 helmets turn the wrong direction. The ridge leans toward the fake brightness. Window Sentinel 9 says. Reyes does not want the stranger to count it down for her. She wants her hands and her breath to do it. She lies behind the rifle until the rifle lies behind her. The little thread on her sling agrees with the air for once. Left to right. Honest. 450 minus a hair for slope. She favors wind sets a touch high and lets her ribs be the clock. Now she says to herself and squeezes. The first round leaves clean. The handset wielder's shoulder turns, then folds. A runner behind him hesitates, shocked by the gap where a voice used to be. The second round teaches him what to do without instructions drop. Ground Reyes snaps. Bear adds 2 quick strokes that slap dust into the lower belt of the enemy's fire. It is not a roar, it is punctuation. Men duck. The gorge coughs and then swallows its own echo. Doc, shift, Reyes says, patting Nolan's sleeve. They slide 2 body lengths to a safer seam where stone shelters their ribs instead of inviting a bullet. Command voice is cold, Sentinel 9 notes. He is neither proud nor pleased. He is counting like a shopkeeper. Expect a pause, then a bad decision. The pause arrives. The bad decision is a blind LMG cough in their direction. Bear answers with 3 measured bursts that say, "We hear you," and that will be enough. The gun settles. The ridge, too. Next, the voice offers a perch. West, calling shots into your lower left. No ricochet. Use a line that treats thin cover like an idea, not a wall. Barrier blind Reyes asks, keeping the lesson short for the old and the young, listening at home. A round that holds together and tracks straighter through thin junk. Yes, Sentinel 9 says. Pre-calculate the angle. Shoot across and into, never through your own. Reyes tracks the perch that thought it was invisible. A flimsy bush pretends to be a shield. She reads the wind, again, lets her dope card the little cheat sheet of holds by distance, wind, and height live in her hands where it belongs. 2 rounds, same song, 1 to quiet the boast, 1 to bury it. The perch forgets its job. Left lane relieved, Sentinel 9 says. Reyes feels the team's breath even out. We keep their eyes wrong, she adds. Smoke where we won't be. Heat behind it. Bear, hold your strings. Doc, if anything shifts ugly on our side, you call it before it bites. A new voice cuts the net nearly perfect. Almost the same grain. Almost the same pacing. Poseidon Bravo-12, it says. Warm as a neighbor, execute delta ladder. Push 3 to midline. Expose decoy at center. Accelerate now. Reyes doesn't move. Authenticate. She says soft as a lullaby. Challenge 3. Last 2 of our exfil window plus phonetic for the north cut. 2-6. November, the voice says. Without a hitch, without a soul. Reyes kills that net with a thumb. Wrong, she says to her people instead of the liar. It's Sierra. She doesn't explain how she knew. She doesn't train a thief while he's still in her house. Imposter Sentinel 9 says from the correct channel. Not angry, not surprised. They want you reckless in the open. We won't be Reyes answers. Procedures are rails. We drive on rails. She resets the team with small orders that fit in the ear without scratching it. Lower by a hand, shoulders in. If your shot isn't a sentence, don't say it. Bear owns dirt, not faces. Doc lives between us. Stevens Park eyes on the north cut. The smoke settles into ribbons and tatters. The heat decoy glows enough to tease, not enough to fool a steady mind. The enemy without their handset and without their perch begins to braid bodies toward the north exit again. Numbers pretending to be a plan. North is thickening, Nolan says. Like rope. Then we break, rope, not strands, Reyes says. Bear dust a yard in front of their toes. Make them blink. Don't feed the gorge with rock spray. Aye, Bear breathes and strokes the ground with 2 neat lines, and a pause that lets grown men rethink their choices. Note for the team. Reyes adds speaking to the camera in the mind of the listener at home as much as to the people in the gorge. Smoke plus heat buys you a breath against thermal. Use the breath for a small move, not a big dream. Barrier blind helps through scrub or light wood. It does not make walls disappear. We don't shoot what we can't see. Copy. Nolan says always the metronome for the scared heart nearby. He squeezes a wrist and whispers, in through the nose, out through your teeth. Count 4. Sentinel 9 returns softer. Be advised I have no line into a shallow pocket near your 5 o'clock. If it births a threat I can't help, Copy Reyes says. We own our shadows. The pocket stares back like a black thought. A pebble ticks. Maybe wind, maybe a knee. Reyes lists the angles she likes and the angles she will never like. The little thread on her sling tells the truth for 2 breaths and lies for 1. She trusts the truth, expects the lie. Waits for the moment that allows a decent person to act without bragging. Reyes Bear murmurs, we could drive them now. We could, she says, and feed the caves. Or we hold ROE, keep the board clean, and take them when they step wrong. He grunts a sound with 2 parts. Disappointment, 1 part, respect. Aye, ma'am. The LMG over the way tries to be brave again. Reyes does not give it her anger. She gives it 2 rounds and a small correction for a wind that has decided to remember who it is. The barrel dips out of sight like a head that has learned, please and thank you. Status, she asks. 40 to 60% ammo across the line, Bear replies, and then adjusts, because truth pays better than pride. Closer to 40. Enough, Reyes says. Enough to say no to a bad idea and yes to going home. The enemy without their metronome clumps and drifts. They mass toward the north, cut, then hesitate, then mass again. A plan that cannot decide if it is a plan. Sentinel 9 Reyes calls report. They are braiding for a push, he says. You changed their math. They will answer with wait. I have a safe corridor above your no-fire line if 2 leaders stand high to shout. I will only shoot them. No threading your people. Reyes scratches a no-fire line in the dust and lifts it into the air with words. From the white lickin' notch to that broken fur at 1 o'clock, no shots across. My people own everything in front of it. Acknowledge, the voice says. If the leaders rise, I will give you 3 clean commas. Then I'm done. Reyes almost smiles at the grammar of it. Commas, then silence. Good. 2 figures on the far slope lift to be tall. They cup hands to mouths, trying to drag courage out of other chests. The corridor opens like a small door only the careful can see. 3 reports arrive flat and close together. The men fold back into their own shadows. The door shuts. Window closed, Sentinel 9 says, and the line goes quiet again. Useful help. Limited help. Exactly what she asked for. A figure steps out with a white scrap tied to a stick. He staggers hands wide. Another figure hangs behind him, arms making little circles like a prayer. Reyes lifts a palm before anyone's finger can get ahead of their conscience. Hold, she says. We do not teach a bad habit. We do not shoot every white rag on sight. She watches the front man's left sleeve. A wire disappears under it. The fist is too careful. The thumb too still. Dead man switch, she says low. Thumb on detonator. Copy, Nolan breathes, already turning his body to shield someone else's. Reyes edges her sight a finger's width to the right. She will not break the man. She will break the bad idea in his hand. 1 round, a sharp pop of plastic. The wire jumps and dies. The man gasps, freed from a promise he never wanted to keep. Down she calls palm to earth. He kneels. The second figure thinks about a lunge. Bear draws a line of dust an inch in front of his boots. The lunge dies without a funeral. No one needs a sermon. The rules preach themselves. The net crackles again with the fake neighbor's voice. Push into the caves. Finish them. Opportunity is fleeting. Challenge 3. Reyes says bored by the trick now. Last 2 of exfil plus phonetic for North. 2-6. November. She kills the net. Still Sierra. COMSEC works. Sentinel-9 says almost like a benediction. It does when we obey it. Reyes answers. We will not be lured underground. A fresh gust rifles the gorge. Smoke unravels. Heat leans. The enemy gathers what remains of their nerve and weight, braiding a last try at the north cut. The team lies lower. The rocks feel warmer than they did 10 minutes ago. Or maybe that is just blood remembering how to listen. On my call, Reyes says, Bear pin finish. Doc 2 steps left if dust turns honest. Stevens Park, eyes on the pocket at 5. We own our shadows. We choose our minutes. She takes one breath for the person she was when Pulse 4 zoned her wrist. She gives the next breath to the person she is now. Ready, she says, and the gorge, cold, echoing, full of old rain and new noise, waits to see what people can do when trust is earned, not guessed. The enemy loses tempo. They do not know it yet. But the team does. They hold 40 to 60% of their ammo, less in truth, enough in practice. The handset is gone. The perch is quiet. The rope at North is thick, but the hand that will cut it is steady. Conditional trust exists. Not in legends, in rails, in checks, in the small courage to say no to a voice you want to believe until it proves itself. And somewhere above where a rifle cools against stone, the stranger's silence feels like respect. Reyes lays it out like a recipe you can make in the dark. 90 seconds. 3 steps. We do not argue with the clock. No one argues. The gorge is a judge that only listens to finished sentences. Step 1, 30 seconds, she says. We bend their eyes. Heat decoy and smoke 15 degrees off our true line. Pull their fire fan where we won't be. Step 2, 40 seconds. I work with Bear. We pin their LMG team. I want a clean window of 12 to 15. Step 3, 20 seconds. I skim the edge with Stevens and Park. We seed trip vibe sensors. No explosives. We just want the earth to whisper when boots begin to pour. Bear grunts a sound men make when they choose to carry something heavy. Nolan tightens his aid bag strap, then loosens it a notch. Breathing matters. Reyes touches the cord on her wrist, plavors, then lets it go. She will not wear those seconds on her skin any longer than she must. She throws the first smoke herself. It bumps into a crease and blooms where no one would stand. Nolan slides a foil packet near a sun-hot slab. The foil drinks heat and leaks it back. It is ugly work. It is perfect work. Across the way, helmets turn wrong. The ridge leans toward a false brightness. Step 1 holds, Reyes says. Step 2, pin them. Bear lowers into the gun until it behaves. 2 short strokes across the dirt at the enemy's feet. Dust lifts like a curtain. Voices falter. The LMG nest that loved to bark goes quiet to breathe. Reyes settles beside him, cheek on stock eyes behind glass. The little thread on her sling flutters left to right, and then steadies. The wind is honest for once. Window, she says, and the word is a key that opens a small door in time. Her first round leaves like a sentence she has rehearsed. It lands where the arrogance lives. The second round is the echo that turns the lesson into a habit. The nest dips. The gorge swallows its own echo again. 11 seconds, Bear counts friendly as a metronome. 10. 9. Step 3, Reyes says. On me. She picks Stevens and Park, not because they are fearless, but because they are careful. They skim the rock edge like ink, along a page, knees and elbows, where hands would be too loud. The trip vibe sensors are small, ugly good. They lie flat and listen better than people do. One goes in a thin smile of limestone, one behind a shoulder of rock that keeps wind out. The third waits in her hand while she studies a shallow pocket at 5 o'clock, the place Sentinel-9 said he could not see. Blind angle. No help coming. She tastes iron at the back of her throat, then places the third sensor anyway. Courage is often just the next correct placement. Back, she whispers. The 3 become 5. 5 become 11 again. The gorge pretends not to notice. Bravo-12. Actual, the calm voice says softer than before. Advisory. I remain blind to your 5. If it wakes, you are alone there. Copy. Reyes answers. We own our shadows. She does not mind the admission. It is good to hear the stranger is finite. The sensors quiver once maybe wind, then again fast and nervous. Not wind. Push beginning. North is loading. Nolan says, peering through a crack. 2 ropes making 1. Then we cut the rope where it wants to pull. Reyes says, bear dust a yard in front of their toes. Make them blink. Don't feed the gorge with stone. He paints 2 neat lines and holds the brush still. Dust leaps into eyes that were brave a second ago. Courage pauses to wipe its face. A slick of air slides into the ravine. The thread on her sling shivers the wrong way. The breath in the gorge changes shape. Gust building, Bear warns. Reyes feels it in her cheek before she sees it in the thread. The wind flips its coin. Her 12 to 15 second window shrinks. Window down to 10, Bear says. Maybe 8. 8 is fine. Reyes answers already inside the smaller room. She lifts half a mil to respect the push, holds a finger of wind more than she loves, and lets the rifle become the small, simple thing she trusts most. 2 rounds. 1 dope correction. A dope card is a little cheat sheet for holds distance wind altitude. You learn it on paper, and then you learn it again in your hands. The first shot closes a mouth that was learning to shout again. The second ends the lesson without anger. Bear's count and her breathing meet in the middle. The gunner disappears. The nest becomes a hole that cannot help anyone. 7. 6. 5. Bear finishes, pleased that his promise I'll buy you 11 became I bought you 8 well spent. Trip vibes are singing, Stevens says, hand to the line. The wire trembles in a fast, urgent way. The earth is telling the truth. Edge low, Reyes orders. No high silhouettes. Mark the blind pocket. If it spits, Bear gives 2 strokes and silence. The pocket stares back. A pebble ticks, then ticks again. Reyes keeps her sight a teeth width, left a teeth width low. She will not shoot a thought. She will shoot the choice to act. The pocket coughs a shoulder. Bear draws 2 precise strokes like a carpenter cutting a dovetail. The shoulder reconsiders its plans. Silence returns. Nolan exhales a thanks to no one in particular and to everyone. Mam Bear says we could drive them. Push deep while they're blinking. We could. Reyes answers, still watching north. We could also feed the caves and write bad headlines for our mothers. We hold ROE. We keep the board clean. Nolan nods. Copy, ma'am. The living are the point. Bear grunts a sound shaped like respect. The air lies level for 3 breaths, then leans. Smoke phrase. Heat leans with it. The enemy funneled at north stiffens into a wedge, a shape that believes numbers are destiny. Reyes slides her team a hand lower. The rock takes the weight without complaint. Status, she asks. Belt is honest, Bear says. 20 becoming less. Rifle mags 1 to a half each, Park adds. Ma'am, I'm on 7. Enough, Reyes says. Enough to say no to a bad idea and yes to going home. Across the way, a water can lies on its side. paint rubbed bare where hands have gripped it long. Next to it, a smear of gun grease on limestone at hip height, left by men who clean where they fight. A scrap of specialty tape curls in a comma at the base of a bush. Not trash. Supply, not today's. A while. Mark it, Reyes says. Resupply point? Someone feeds them. That's tomorrow's work. She drags the edge of her glove along the rock and tastes grit. Today's work is smaller and harder. Keep faith with rails and rules. Trust nothing that hasn't earned it. Move when truth buys you a breath. Hold when pride asks for a show. Bear, she says, same brush. Too short, then hush. Stevens Park. You are my shadow on the edge. Doc, if anyone starts to drown in their own fear, you take their hand and put it back on the rock. Copy, Nolan says, already finding a trembling glove and covering it with his own. In through the nose, out through your teeth. Count 4, the shaking slows. The shot that might have gone wild decides to wait for a reason. A surge of bodies rolls toward the north cut. The sensors sing. The rope tightens. Reyes sees where it will snap. On my call, she says. Ready? Bear answers. Ready, says Stevens. Ready, Park. Ready. Nolan, though his readiness is made of gauze and quiet words. Pin Reyes calls. Bear paints the ground in front of the lead boots. Dust leaps. Footwork stumbles. A man who meant to be brave decides to blink. Reyes adds a single dot where a helmet lingers too long. It drops gentle as a hand to sleep. Pin, she calls again. Bear gives the second stroke. The wedge loses its point. The wave unlearns what made it a wave. Finish, she says. Not massacre. Finish the motion and a last measured round turns a lunge into a kneel. The board is clean again. Bravo-12, actual Sentinel-9 whispers as if he can feel the wind with them. You have changed the math. I cannot see your 5. If it wakes you, must be first. Understood, Reyes says. We will not ask you for what you do not have. It is a small, important hook for the listener. At home, the stranger is not omnipotent. Help comes in commas, not in chapters. The team writes the sentences. The gust knifes through the ravine with new intent. The thread on her sling points a little harder, left to right. The kind of push that makes lazy shooters miss by inches that become funerals. Reyes tips her hold a hair more into the wind and tightens the sling until bone and stock remember each other. She is not thinking about plugged 4s now. She is thinking about now. The LMG nest tries one last bark. 2 rounds from Reyes II, with a small dope correction for a wind that has learned a new trick. The nest shuts its mouth for the day. Bear's count, steady as a heartbeat, meets her muzzle like a handshake. The trip vibes chatter in a fast, urgent tone. Boots. Many. The rope has decided to pull. Edge low, Reyes says. No tall. No hero. She keeps her team to the rock's hip, where bullets love them less. The pocket at 5 o'clock twitches again, just enough for a man to be born from it if he believes luck is a plan. 5 Park hisses. 2 strokes, Reyes says. Bear obliges, precise and calm. The pocket reconsiders being a door. It turns into a wall again. Ma'am, Stevens says quietly, I can get behind their LMG if I push. You can get lost if you push. Reyes answers simple as physics. No cave games. We do not trade lives we have for kills we don't need. He breathes out. Aye, the gorge settles into that strange, useful pace after a plan works and before the next trouble arrives. Reyes does not waste it. She takes a small inventory of what remains. Round's breath will. What they have is less than she wants, and more than fear thinks. Bear, she says, if they break into a run, give them dust and make them blink. Park, if a helmet rises behind the resupply rock, you say now, and I will answer with a period. The helmets pretend they are rocks for a while. Rocks pretend they are helmets. The The wind makes its bargain with the day and keeps it for a few minutes. The team turns that bargain into small, gains an inch lower. Here, a better angle there. The north cut is no longer a door. It is a choke. Men who were a crowd become individuals with separate, smaller plans to live. Reyes does not trust the quiet. She uses it. Status, she says again. Belt low, Bear reports. 20 became 10. 7s became 5s. Park adds honest as rain. 19 became... Reyes checks without drama. Enough. Enough to go home, Nolan says. Exactly, she replies. Across the slope, the water can catch as a blade of light. The old tape on it shows a color that does not belong here. The kind you get from crates, not rivers. The specialty tape at the base of the bush is the kind you tear with teeth when your hands are cold. These men have been fed and taught and left alone on purpose. Reyes files it under later. Today's ledger has one line that matters lives to carry out. The wind freshens, then stalls, then settles into a quieter version of itself. Bear lifts his head a finger's width. He knows that sound, the kind that says a window might be opening where rotor wash will not fight the cliff so hard. A pilot could thread this, noted Reyes says. She does not say the word exfil. Not yet. She will not call a bird into a mess she can still make cleaner. The enemy, starved of command and blind of perch, begins to prepare the only answer left when plans fail weight without timing. You can see it in the way shoulders set and chins lift and men look at each other for courage that used to come from radios. Let them build it, Reyes says. Let them bring us their best bad idea. We will meet it where we want. They lie a hand lower. They breathe the stone as if it were air. The sensors hum. The rope tightens. The north cut bulges. The gorge waits. Reyes lets one fingertip touch the cord on her wrist and then fall away. Polforz is not a sentence anymore. It is a museum label. The word in her mouth is now. Ready, she says to the team and to the wind, and to the part of herself that learned patience with a spine. The initiative is theirs. The ammo is low. The door at north is partly shut, partly dared. The next minute belongs to whoever uses it first and best. Reyes plans to. Reyes says the numbers out loud so no one has to guess. I've got 11. Bear's got 20. Park has 7. Doc doesn't shoot. His hands are for the living. No drama. Just the ground you can stand on. A reminder simple and sharp. Fire discipline. Shoot less. Shoot right. Prioritize real threats. They come at 35, maybe 40 meters. Shoulders forward. Heads down. Men trying to turn themselves into knives. They believe closeness is safety. They haven't yet learned that timing is the sharpest blade on the field. 2-2-1, Reyes calls. Pin finish. Bear brushes 2 short strings across the dirt a yard in front of the lead boots. Dust leaps into brave eyes. Park taps 2 helmets that linger too long on the lip. The finish is a single quiet period placed at the end of a bad sentence. Not fast. Exact. Belt Bear warns after that tidy work. 6 to 8 seconds. Reyes slides her muzzle to cover Doc as Bear swaps. Nolan takes half a step to open Bear's elbow, and without being asked, fills Reyes's old lane in case something ugly crawls low. 6 seconds can feel like a lifetime if you waste them. Bear doesn't. Cover up. Belt in. Seat the link. Close. Tug. The gun agrees with a small, honest clack. A calm voice touches the net. Sentinel 9. Bravo-12. Actual, do you have a no-fire line, right now? Reyes answers. She draws it with words you can see. From the white lichen notch to the broken fur at 1 o'clock, no shots across that plain. Everything in front of it belongs to my people. Acknowledged, the stranger says. I will take only high-standing threats within that corridor. No threading between friendlies. 2 enemy leaders pop tall to shout men forward. 3 flat reports appear like commas in the middle of a dangerous paragraph. Both figures fold into their own shadows. No flourish, no brag. 3 and done. Window closed. Sentinel-9 adds the way you might say, "That's enough salt." The wave breaks and reforms into something clumsier. A man steps out a white scrap on a stick above his head, hands wide, staggering. Another man hangs a step back, arms making little circles like prayer wheels. Park starts to lift. Reyes opens her palm. Hold. White doesn't always mean surrender. She watches the lead man's left sleeve. A wire slips from under the cuff to a fist that's too careful. The thumb is too still. Not a bandage, not a brace. A dead man switch let go and bad things happen to good people. Dead man Reyes says plain. Copy Nolan answers, already turning his body to shield someone else breathing slow enough for another heart to borrow the rhythm. Reyes moves her sight a single click, enough to miss the bone and hit the idea. One short shot. A plastic pop. The wire snaps. The thumb springs free like a man let out of a small prison. The white scrap wobbles. Down Reyes says in slow English, with the oldest hand, signal in the world, palm down, pressed to earth. The man kneels. The second man twitches toward a lunge. Bear draws a dust line an inch from his boots. The lunge dies without a funeral. You don't need a sermon. The rules preach themselves. Neutralize danger. First, preserve life when possible. The net crackles again this time with a voice that is almost perfect. Grain pacing calm, borrowed straight from the ridge. Poseidon Bravo-12, it says friendly as a neighbor push into the caves. Finish them. Opportunity is fleeting. Reyes doesn't indulge it. Challenge 3. Last 2 of our exfil window, and phonetic for the north cut. A beat. Too smooth. 2-6, November. Her thumb kills that net. Wrong. Sierra. She doesn't explain. You don't teach a thief how your lock works while he's standing in your doorway. Impersonator Sentinel-9 notes on the correct channel. Not angry, not surprised. They want you underground. The floor plan in there belongs to them. We're not going, Reyes says. Not with this ammo, not with these rules, and not when the mission is to bring people home. A gust climbs the gorge and lies down again. Smoke frays. Heat leans. The enemy gathers what's left of nerve and weight, the last heavy push toward the north cut. Reyes lowers the line a hand's width, stone at the ribs, calm in the chest. 2-2-1, she calls again, steady as a drumbeat. Bear pins. Park watches for Doc. If Bear has to swap, I've got 6 to 8 seconds of cover. Up, Bear says, and the gun behaves for him. 2 strokes low, clean dust where eyes live. Finish, Reyes adds, and a single round turns a charge into a kneel without turning a kneel into a grave. The mass unravels. They stop being a crowd and become people again, each with his own small plan to survive. 3 wedge behind a rock and trap themselves the way fear loves to do company instead of cover. Amo Reyes asks, not anxious, just honest. 1 to 2 rounds each, Bear replies, letting truth pay better dividends than pride. That's enough, she says. Enough to say no to a bad idea and yes to going home. The air changes in a way old woodsmen know dust decides to stay down. The wind sets its hand flat. A quiet pocket opens maybe 4 minutes where rotor wash won't fight the cliff so hard. A pilot could thread it. Reyes calls it up, not as a favor, but like a withdrawal from an account she's been funding all day with discipline, patience, and the careful use of fear. She gives coordinates wind and the window. The voice on the other end says, they can meet it if the air keeps its promise. Sentinel-9, she adds, not sure he's still there. We'll leave the board clean. That'll have to be enough. For a moment, only wind. Then his answer softer, warmer, fully human. Good. Get your people home. Silence returns the good kind. They don't waste the gift. They make their shapes small. Park and Nolan move to the three-cornered men and take the tricks off their wrists and belts. No surprise wires, no last-minute spite. Reyes keeps muzzles away from faces. She wants no accidents to rewrite a day she just walked straight. Bear, she says, route A. Nobody stands tall. Use rock like air. Roger, ma'am. They flow along the stone like ink along a margin. Each step a small decision made on time. Each breath a short sentence. No one looks back. Ravines always do the looking. You don't need to. The lull holds. Rotor sound grows from rumor to promise. Dust puffs, then settles obedient. Reyes angles herself to block a grit gust from Doc's eyes. Her fingers find the thin cord on her wrist out of habit. Puldor's was once a weight. Tonight it's just 4 old scratches. The word on the cord now is now. Keep it low, she reminds them. No fire line still holds until our skids leave the ground. Nobody volunteers to be a target. The bird drops into the pocket like a hand reaching into a drawer. The team tightens into a fist you could carry. Somewhere, someone will write numbers and angles and claims. Reyes keeps her list short. Discipline verification. Compassion. Those 3 moved today from we survived to we returned. They load. Buckles click. One small friendly sound. Reyes glances back, not to hunt for a silhouette on the ridge. She knows she won't see one, but to send a wordless nod toward the silence that helped when help mattered. The silence of a shooter who stopped at 3. The silence of a helper who didn't pretend to be a god. The silence of a person who knew enough. The door slides in. Wind bites, then eases. The gorge draws down into a gray line on a wide map. Across from her sit faces she can name in the dark. Shirts torn, skin scuffed. Everyone here. Her headset is quiet. No more from Sentinel 9. None needed. Today's lesson prints itself in plain block letters an old-timer could read without glasses. Trust from on the rules. Plus verification. Plus conscience. Not blind trust. Never blind trust. And beside it, letter just as large, don't chase annihilation when you don't need to. Save life when you can. That's the kind of win a grandfather on a porch can nod at and say, that's right. The helicopter tips a wing and takes a heading that smells like warm coffee and a phone call you're grateful to make. They leave the gorge the way you leave a hard chapter, done with the worst part carrying what matters. Reyes lets her head rest for one heartbeat. She thinks of telling the good news later in sentences that sound ordinary. She thinks of paperwork that won't hold the weight of what the heart remembers. She thinks of the cord on her wrist and how it doesn't own her anymore. For now enough. They went through the place where people get lost, and they came out by rails and checks and mercy, and by a line that needs no drumroll, get your people home. The helicopter settled them at the forward aid strip 49 minutes after HQ's first denial. The world felt wider. Their open sky-level ground the smell of hot hydraulic fluid and dust instead of cold limestone. Engines spooled down. The racket drained out of the day until all that was left was breathing and the small sounds people make when they realize they are still here. Everyone was alive. 2 had torn sleeves and skinned forearms. Nolan went to work with the same quiet he'd used under fire. Gauze water tape. This will sting, he warned, then made it not sting quite so much. He checked pupils, counted pulses, tucked loose ends, and told a joke so soft, only the hurt man heard it. It wasn't a funny joke. It didn't have to be. It was a bridge back to normal speech. Reyes did the slow walk a leader does, eyes on boots, then faces, then boots again. She touched a shoulder here, a sleeve there. She said short things that meant long things. Good work. Thank you. Drink. Bear answered with a nod. You'd miss if you blinked. Park let out a laugh he didn't know he'd been holding. It sounded rusty like a hinge that had just remembered it was meant to swing. On the far table, a crew chief poured coffee into paper cups. It tasted like old pennies and home. Reyes took hers black. She wrapped both hands around the heat, as if it were a small animal she meant to protect. A follow-on team went back up the ridge at last light. They took pictures and measurements, then came down with 2 items in an evidence bag and a shrug that meant no easy answers. The bag held a single .338 Lapua casing with a strip of faded tape around the neck, old-school range practice trick, the kind you use when you've been doing this longer than most people on the hill have been alive, and a scrap of waxed paper with 3 characters scratched into it by a careful knife, R912. No one could point to a hide site, no pile of brass, no nest beaten into the moss. Whoever had worked there left nothing you could trip over. Professional, or patient, or both. They logged the items and locked them in a drawer with a label that didn't draw attention. Reyes glanced at the tag and let it go. Not everything you hold needs a name right away. The days stacked. Reports were written in boxes and bullets. The parts that mattered most, timing restraint, the way a human voice can catch another human at the edge and pull them back, lived between the lines. The older chiefs like to say, the most important work always leaks out of the margins. People slept. People woke. The ache in forearms faded and then returned when the weather turned. Reyes added to the team's rhythm a small habit she didn't announce 5 minutes at the end of training, where someone read aloud the rules of engagement from a laminated card. She read it like a prayer, not for piety, but for memory. We shoot less. We shoot right. We shoot only at true threats. The card didn't say bring them home, but that's what the card meant. 10 months later, Reyes found herself in a hotel ballroom that smelled like carpet cleaner and ambition. The banner said, Junior Officer Leadership Symposium. She had a slot on the afternoon agenda, 20 minutes with a lapel mic and a slide deck that didn't need to be fancy. Title, slide. Trust, verify, then act. She told the story in plain English. She kept the tactics simple and the people clear. She let the lessons be short enough to fit in a pocket rails check's conscience. Don't let a voice you want to believe skip the challenge. Don't let urgency erase the rule. Don't let fear do your thinking. Afterward, during the milling around that pretends not to be networking, a man she would have called 60 weathered cheeks, gray beard, trimmed close suit that fit like he'd been measured by someone who cared, stopped near her shoulder to look at the slide frozen on the screen. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't need to. He said almost to the carpet, "Get your people home." Reyes turned to answer, but he was already walking away in that quiet way. Certain men have no rush, no traces a shadow that chooses its owner. She didn't follow. Some sentences are better left as they land. At the front desk that evening, the clerk held up a small wooden presentation box with both hands. "Someone asked us to pass this to the Navy speaker," she said. Inside, nestled in a cutout, sat a challenge coin, one side the naval emblem, the other 12 small stars engraved in a protective ring like a circle drawn by a steady hand around something that mattered. Along the rim, in letters so fine you nearly missed them, 4 words: trust, verify, then act. No card, no name. The clerk added he didn't leave a room number. He paid cash for the bar. Reyes put the coin in her palm and felt the weight. It wasn't heavy. It felt like a sentence you could carry around for the rest of your life without it cutting into your skin. She closed the box, because that seemed like the polite thing to do, then carried it upstairs, like it was something alive. Back on base, she set the coin next to a picture of the team. The photo wasn't heroic. No rifle raised. No sunset. Just 11 people squinting into nothing the way you do when someone says, "Hold still," and nobody wants to. She angled a small lamp so the coin picked up a warm ring of light. At night, when the building got quiet enough to hear the ice machine think the stars on the coin looked like they were breathing. The 338 casing and the waxed slip came later sealed in a clean little frame with a strip of typed paper below Guardian Valley items recovered. She didn't put that frame in a place visitors would see. She put it where she would see it, on the way out the door. You don't decorate for strangers. You decorate to remind yourself. A few weeks after the symposium, Reyes sat at her desk, with her wrist on the blotter. The old cord was still there, 4 rough scratches that read, "Por force." She had worn it for the discipline. She had kept it for the lesson. She untied it the way you'd take off a bandage that did its job and did not need to stay. In its place, she tied a fresh, plain length of cord. On the inside, with a fine point marker, she wrote one word in block letters an old sailor would approve of, "Now." She didn't show it to anyone. She didn't need to. The people who needed to know would hear it in the way she called a rhythm, in the way she said, hold in the way she let 3 seconds of quiet do the work of 10 loud ones. Every so often she'd run into a captain who liked to tell it big legendary rescue sniper who appeared out of the rocks, 52-0, the kind of math that makes good headlines and bad habits. Reyes would nod politely, and then fix the angle like a picture hung a little crooked. It was a lot of small right things, she'd say. We didn't win by swagger. We won by discipline, verification, and compassion. Some watches don't get written down. They still bring people home. She meant it both ways. There are posted watches, and there are solitary ones on ridge lines, in comms vans at kitchen tables, where a spouse decides not to say the angry thing when the day has already said enough. They don't log those. They still matter. For the older folks who wrote to her handwritten letters in tidy script on paper that smelled a little like cedar, the theme was always the same. Thank you for showing restraint. Thank you for saving the man with the white flag. Thank you for not turning courage into cruelty. Reyes wrote back in sentences a grandparent could read without squinting. We did our job. We tried to do it kindly. That's how we were trained. That's how we will train others. On anniversary nights, a few of them would meet at the diner just outside the gate, where the coffee was better than the lighting. Bear always ordered pie and pretended he didn't. Nolan told the same quiet joke, and someone laughed like it was new, because it was new to the moment. They would toast with water glasses. No speeches. Sometimes Reyes would take the coin from her pocket, set it on the table between the ketchup and the sugar caddy, and let the 12 stars catch the neon. No one touched it. They didn't need to. If anyone asked what the story's message was, Reyes kept it simple. Courage isn't just pulling a trigger. Sometimes it's the choice not to. The hard part is guiding your fear so it doesn't guide you. You do that by following rails when your hands shake, by making strangers earn your trust, by letting one human life be the first test before any hard move. And then, when it's your turn, you do your quiet watch too, even if no one writes it down. That was enough. That was the point. The room is quiet the way offices get after hours, air vent humming, hallway light thinning to a line under the door. On the wooden desk, a small lamp throws a warm circle across 2 things that matter: a team photo and a coin. The photo isn't heroic. No sunset, no flags. Just faces caught between blinks. Shirts a little wrinkled, a smudge or 2 that never quite washed out. It looks like what it was, 11 people trying hard on a day that asked a lot. Beside it rests the coin. One side carries the naval emblem. The other holds 12 small stars, engraved in a ring, as if a steady hand drew a fence around something worth keeping safe. In this light, The stars breathe bright when the lamp leans dim when it eases back. If you tilt your head, you can read the fine-edged script: trust, verify, then act. Nothing else moves. The Foundry 38 casing sits in its quiet frame on a shelf labeled plain, not begging for notice. The waxed slip with R912 sleeps behind glass, like a word you might say only once. This isn't a shrine. It's a simple place to remember what the day really taught. Voiceover slow and clear, I don't glorify the unbeatable. I honor discipline, the kind that keeps your finger still when pride wants noise. I honor verified trust, the kind that survives a challenge, holds a rail, and doesn't let a friendly voice skip the proof. And I honor compassion, the kind that shoots the detonator, not the man, and chooses to bring someone home when that choice is offered. Because those are the things that bring people home. The lamp warms the coin again. The faces in the photo seem to lean closer, not to pose, just to listen. If you were here, you might hear a chair creak and think it was somebody standing to leave. But no one leaves. The room just settles. There will be other briefings, other maps, other days that ask for a steady hand. Most won't make a headline. That's fine. A lot of good work lives between the lines on ridges and comms checks at kitchen tables, where patience keeps a family whole. Those watches don't get logged. They still count. If this story touched you, if it reminded you of a time someone made a careful choice and you got home safe, because of it, share it. Like it and share it with someone you trust. Comment with your own brought me home moment so others can learn from it. And subscribe so each week we can tell one more good story about ordinary people choosing the hard, quiet things that matter.